Hey guys, thank you so much for coming out to our UI UX Design for Hackathons workshop. Just to get a read of the room, how many of you guys are the designer of your teams? None of you? Okay, that's cool. I hope you guys still get something out of this workshop. The objective of this workshop is to simplify the UX design in the scope of a hackathon setting. So just a little bit about who we are. We are representing Davis Computer Science Club and Davis Women in Computer Science. My name is Jen. I'm the design director of both Davis Computer Science Club and Women in Computer Science. My professional interests lie in user experience design. I've done some freelance work in that area, and I'm really excited to share more about this field. Assisting me today are representatives from Davis Computer Science Club and Women in Computer Science. I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hey guys, I'm Ghanshyam Patel. I'm treasurer of DCSC, which is Davis Computer Science Club. You guys are probably wondering, like, he's a treasurer, what does he have to do with design? I have a lot of experience in terms of design, and in terms of the entire Adobe suite, and various applicable programs that are related to UI.
Hi, I'm Celine, and I'm the resource director of Women in Computer Science, and I sometimes design web pages.
So you might be wondering, why are two computer science clubs at Davis hosting a workshop on design? And that's because although we are two separate computer science clubs, we are both in the support of the computer science community. We feel that design is often overlooked because maybe design can be a little bit intimidating. It's ignored for more technical things. But we feel that a design workshop would be pretty useful to the computer science community, so we're here today to present on user experience design.
Okay, so you might be wondering, what is user experience design? So some people might think it's only about visual design, or it's only about web development or product management. In reality, it's about designing meaningful and relevant experiences for users. So this means that users can get information that they need quickly and efficiently. And although visual design has some part of user experience design, and that's probably what you might focus on mostly in hackathons, in the real world, user experience design encompasses a lot more than that. So some differences between UX and UI. So user experience design covers mostly interaction design, prototyping, usability testing, information architecture, and user research. So that focuses more on how the user interacts with your application. And user interface focuses more on the aesthetics and how your application looks. So this includes visual design, branding, colors, typography, and design systems. The best analogy that I've heard is that UX is almost like a skeleton of your body, and UI is more like putting on makeup.
Great. So I just wanted to get a gauge of seeing what projects everyone's working on. So the two most common, like, web apps or mobile apps. So who here is working on a mobile app? And it could be Android, iOS. Okay, web app. Right. So most of the people here are working on a web app, and Jen will definitely guide you on how to actually really get started with that. But we really want to talk about UX versus UI, because a lot of people think that the two are combined, because we always say it together. It's just nonchalant, you know. Everyone's just like UI UX. It's all combined, but they're actually two distinct entities. And the way user experience is a lot of different factors that have an impact on it. And just demonstrated by this graphic, like human-computer interaction, front-end development, sound design, human factor, software architecture. So when you're thinking about your user experience, yes, it's supposed to be solely focused on it's supposed to be very user-centric. So your customer is the main person you're trying to please, and you're trying to make your product as simple as possible for them. And in that case, you also have to remember that you have a lot of confounding variables that take a play on how you choose your user experience, right? Your software architecture, right? What can you actually do with that, with the buttons you create, with whatever you do in that entire wireframe or the entire product itself? You have to make sure that every component of it is down to the T, so it's super easy for the person using it, and in that way, your product will be very successful. And the question that comes up is that why is UX even important, right? A lot of times we're just like, why don't we just create a great UI, a great design, and just leave it at that? But UX is actually really important, especially for a hackathon, because one, you only have 2 minutes to really wow the judges, right? And if your UX, for lack of words, is shitty, at that point, your judge who's trying to see what your product is about, like they have 2 minutes, they don't know what your product is about, like at all. So if they come in with a fresh start, like, hey, this is a person's project, they're gonna explain for a little bit and then demo it, right? If your user experience is terrible, it's gonna take them too long to understand which goal you're trying or what you're trying to achieve with this. So UX and design are essential for product, especially for social good, right? Again, we're customer centric, we're user centric. We want to make sure that they're in the front every time.
So this is a diagram of the UX design process. This process is used extensively in industry. It's the first thing they teach you in design classes, and it's taught in every single design class. This process was formulated by Ideate, which is a really well-known design firm, and it's pioneered by Stanford D School, which is also they're also a leader in design thinking and product design. So the 5 steps are empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. So the first step is to empathize, and this is the phase where you understand your user. And that's really important because ultimately you're designing for one thing, the user. So the way you can do that is to conduct user research. And conducting user research means gathering information about your user. Who they are, what they do, what they like, what they dislike, and what they need. So what you do is you observe how people interact in their environment, engage what they need, and establish pain points. Pain points is basically what they have a problem with. So one way to do that in a hackathon setting is to ask your teammates and to ask your neighbors or anyone around you, honestly, you can ask your mentors, what they want to see. What problems they want solved and what do they see in the world that needs improvement. And in this phase, it's really important to ask a lot of questions because the more research you get, the better your product will end up. Because ultimately, this will go to the next phase, which is to define. So in this phase, you draw conclusions from user research. This is a phase where you make sense of your findings, and you come up with a concrete problem and needs for the product. At this phase, it's really important that you have really good user research because user insight is your most powerful tool in maximizing your product's potential. So this is especially important because in the hackathons, I've noticed that a lot of people tend to get caught up in the sponsorships and the prizes. They really want to integrate this API, that API, everything. But it's really important that your product stays focused and in one direction so that you ultimately solve the problem that you're trying to solve. If your problem solves one problem and a myriad of other problems, that's really great, but ultimately it loses focus and it ultimately becomes really hard to use. You don't want that for your product because ultimately it confuses the user and it's not a good product. The next stage is to ideate, and that's when you come up with ideas. You come up with, at this point, it's quality over quantity. I'm sure when you guys were thinking about your project ideas, you guys didn't, or maybe you guys did, I don't know, but maybe you guys didn't stick with your first idea, and that's perfectly fine. Sometimes it takes a lot of ideation to come up with the best solution that you can, because honestly, your first idea won't be your best idea. Even if you think that idea might be bad, it's still really important to take note of it because you can always improve upon that or come up with, maybe it can be a feature or a function for a future iteration. So the next part of this phase is to separate the generation of ideas and to evaluate your ideas. So this is when you take all of the ideas that you made and you go through them one by one. Will this solve my product? Will this solve a problem? Will this meet my user's needs? And in this phase, and then from here, what you do is you narrow down your ideations to prototype further. The next phase is to prototype, which in itself is an ideation technique. Creating prototypes will help you see further if it will solve that problem. And a prototype is something that a user can interact with. It doesn't necessarily have to be a high fidelity mock-up of made in Sketch or Figma or whatever other design tool. it can honestly just be a sketch or a couple of post-its that a user can use. And at this phase, they really don't have to be high quality, because honestly, in this prototyping phase, you build them to get more feedback and to build upon previous user research. And right now, I just want to reiterate that the design process, you can go back and forth. It's not like a rigid like step-by-step thing. It's very fluid, and honestly, the beauty of the design process is that you can always go back and build upon your ideas and maybe even like scratch it and just like start over. Like, there's no harm in doing that, because honestly, like, design is just like very fluid. So in hackathons, what prototyping can look like is just sketching. It can look like you talking it over with it can look like sketching, it can look like really low fidelity mockups in whatever design tool you're looking, and so on. And finally, the final step is to test. And that's when you create more high quality prototypes to get feedback. Honestly, like, this is a really important tool in also gathering user research, because honestly, your user will give you the best feedback on this, especially if you're testing your most high quality prototype. At this phase, like, you can gather the best information, and you can always go back to the emphasizing phase and dividing phase to build upon that, improve it, and so on. And also at this phase, you'll be handing it off to your developer for front-end development, and I'll be showing you how to do that on Adobe XD later.
Right, and just to recap the 5 steps, again, make sure you research before you design. You don't want to go straight into it and end up having to realize that your UI and the entire user experience is not that great. Like Jen said, follow the steps, not like completely directly, just be fluid with it. Go through the steps, do your research, think about how the user is using the product in general. Again, keep the user in mind, define those pain points that the customer will potentially have while using your product. And definitely go through several iterations, right? Your first idea will not always be amazing, and for like 99% of the time, your idea will be trash. Like, just brutally honestly, your idea will just be trash. So just go through several iterations, and you'll just keep building upon each other, and you'll end up having a really good UI UX. And again, build meaningful prototypes, like Jen said, to get good feedback. And remember that these steps, they're fluid. You can go through them whenever you want to. It's not a step-by-step process.
Are there any questions about the design process? Okay, cool.
If you want to learn more, there is the uxdesign.cc. It's a website called UX Design Collective. It's almost like Medium, so it has a bunch of articles about UX design. There's also a book called Design of Everyday Things by Donald Norman, and that focuses on the psychology of user-centered design. So it talks about what makes a good user experience and what doesn't. And if you are going to UC Davis, you can also take Design 112, the UI UX design class. And if you want even more visual inspiration, here are some websites that you could go to. A lot of these have examples of designs on mobile platforms or web platforms.
Right, and there's also other UX tools out there. And again, most of us here are probably beginners, and it doesn't even matter if you're advanced as well. These tools have helped everyone out in their careers, even if you're like really good at UX and UI. People always look for inspiration at things like Behance, like Celine said. And there's a few tools out there. Figma, which is free to all students, and then Sketch, which Jen will be using. Oh no, sorry, Sketch is another app which would be 50% off for students, but it's still kind of expensive. And then Jen will be using Adobe XD, which is free. And then again, go through Font Awesome, which has like amazing icons, which make nice icons for like a simple user interface. And then there's a few more if you guys want to go through, like CO others, Unsplash and Undraw. These are all great resources for you to use.
I also want to emphasize that the UX design tools that are asterisks, those are optimized for developer handoff. So I recommend those. Oh, and also Adobe XD. I recommend those for hackathon projects because it'll generate HTML, CSS code for you. So yeah, it's really convenient. Are there any further questions? Okay, cool. So now I'll be going into an Adobe XD demo. I did did a demo of a mobile app, but honestly, you'll be able to translate that into a web app. So it's showing up kind of weird on my desktop, but I'll try to make do. So this is a workspace for making a prototype in Adobe XD. If you're familiar with Adobe Creative Suite, it'll be really helpful. Honestly, it's really easy to use if you're familiar with Adobe Creative Suite, but if not, that's totally fine as well. So what I have here is I created a prototype of a UC Davis peer tutoring app. It was based upon the CS tutoring website if you want to like follow along and see. Not really. But I'll basically be showing you how to go about designing the UI. I'm not going to be going through the design process right now, but I'll be basically going over how to design the login and sign up part. So here, in these 4 wireframes, I have the login sign up page. In each of these, I have a little blurb that says like what the UC Davis Computer Science Tutoring Program does. That's all derived from its website. So what you do is you use the text tool and you just like click wherever, you can position it wherever. And I also use the UC Davis Computer Science logo and I put it all across. Yeah, and also to put buttons, I use the rectangle tool, and if you want to make a rounded tool, so you can always go in, just to show you here. Okay, anyways, it's not letting me do it, but what you can do is you can click within, and you can pull it in to create a more rounded rectangle. Yeah, so one thing I recommend that you do is if you want to create a consistent branding identity, is you have all of your colors that you're going to use, you create them as a component. So what you do is you can, if you select the color, you just press the plus button and it saves the color as a component. You can also do that with fonts as well and items that you create, so like rectangles and circles. So yeah, that's basically how you use Adobe XD. What I did here was I created a rectangle, I wrote login, username, and I made a line, the line tool is right here. Username, line, password, line. And the good thing about Adobe XD is that it has smart guides, so it shows you the distance between each thing. So it really lets you able to see the absolute position of everything as well. And you can also use rulers. You just drag from the left side of your artboard and you just drag and drop like that. Yeah, so that's basically how you go about designing in Adobe XD. Another great feature of Adobe XD is that you can also prototype. So what you do is you go to the prototype tool, you can establish flows by just clicking on an icon, which is what I'm gonna do. Yeah, so you can see here that I've created flows from the login button to this login page, and from the sign up button to the, it should be there, but to the sign up, from the sign up button to the sign up page. And you'll be able to see that if you click this play button right here. Yeah, so you can interact with your prototype, which is not working. But you can basically look through all of your prototypes if you press your arrow keys. Does anyone have any further questions? Oh, okay. So for all of you developers out there, to hand off to your developers, you can to hand off to developers, what you can do is you can press share, and then you set your view setting to development, and then since this is an iOS mobile app, you export to iOS, and then from this link that you can copy and paste, you can show your developers the assets, and it'll generate the HTML and CSS code. So I'll show that here right now. So you'll click on this button right here. It'll be like a little end tab. And then all the colors and their hex codes will show here, the character styles, and the interactions will show. And if you click on a certain element, the code will show up, or should show up. It looks like it's not working right now. But what you can also do is that you can download Zeppelin, which is a free converter from Adobe XD to code. And you can download that, it's free for one project, and it'll be able to convert your code better. I'm sorry about that demonstration, it was kind of a mess, but are there any questions? I'll be able to answer any questions. Okay, so we're running pretty good on time. What I wanted to do is I wanted to offer up design critiques. If you guys have an interface that you design and you want any critiques, we will be able to critique and we'll be able to give you more feedback. Thank you.